Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome to Say It to Your Soul, the podcast. This is the place where I am daring to share my unfiltered experiences and lessons in personal growth, well-being, and behavior change in the hopes that together you and I can fulfill our potential. This podcast is all about connecting with your inner self and learning from others, getting curious about what is possible in this life, and taking courageous action. I'll look forward to chatting to you every Monday with a new episode. For now, I hope you enjoy this one. Welcome, Laura, to the Say It to Your Soul podcast. I'm very excited to sit down and converse with you today. And how are you feeling on this fine Friday afternoon?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been a good Friday so far. Taylor Swift album just came out, so yeah, I was listening to that.
Ooh.
So it's an exciting way to, start my Friday.
I love that. Well, Laura, I know that you are a health and wellness coach, and that's your area of passion and also your area of expertise. So I'd love to kick off with asking you, how did you actually get into being a health and wellness coach, and what is it about that really drives you and really motivates you?
Yeah, so I actually have a background in zoology. That's what I studied at uni. And I come from Bolivia, so you're from South America. So I moved to Australia to study zoology. And when I moved here, I really miss horse riding because I used to do that quite a lot back home. And so I wanted to get into hiking a little bit.
Mhm.
So I went on a hike with the Bushwalking Club in Tassie, which is where I studied. And I was so unfit at the time. And I remember us walking and like the girl that had organized the walk, like we took a lunch break and I was super behind, like everyone was stuck because of me. So
Mm.
we reached like halfway point in the mountain and she was like, sorry guys, we're going to have to turn back because we have slow people in the group. And slow people, that was me. It was just me. So
Right.
yeah, we had to turn back because of me. And like I felt so ashamed and
Mm.
just I felt awful in myself and in my body. So I told myself I'm never gonna hike again. Like this was a bad idea. But you know how you like then come to reason and you're like, okay, maybe there are other ways to go around it. So that's how I signed up to the gym. So I could like go hiking a little bit more and like not feel limited by my body. So I started off at the gym like with cardio, like most people do, I suppose. And then I found like a weight training guide, like Emily Sky. I don't know if you know her.
Oh, yes, I remember her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started with her guides, and that just really helped me see a different perspective in my body. I started to appreciate it a lot more. I started feeling stronger and just more confident within myself. But yeah, like when you start the gym, it can be like that high at the start, but then like the body image issues start to come in, like when social media got bigger and that kind of
Mm.
thing. So then I got severely affected by that. I went into like an eating disorder and just had a lot of issues with my self-esteem. And I came out of that after a lot of internal work. And I decided that I wanted to give the fitness industry a shot because I felt like training, like weight training in particular, really helped me see my body for something else. And I really wanted to show other women that you like training can be really good to appreciate your body for more than just how it looks like. So that's kind of how I started. I guess I wanted to create a different like perspective for women and kind of change other people's lives that way. So yeah,
Mm.
that's sort of what got me into the space.
Wow, thank you. That was such a great summary of that first moment and that first interaction and feeling that shame. I mean, I think that is often the path that people go down into starting to think about their health and fitness. It can often be from like a place of shame that there's something about them that they need to fix, and then it's both kind of, I guess, alarming and at the same time very relatable for, I think, a lot of women when they hear of stories where, yeah, that's happened. You've felt ashamed, and then you've started to look at how you can change your body. You go too extreme down that route, then you have some severe issues, and they become more as well psychological, not just to do
Mm.
with your physical, and then you maybe find better ways of doing things and find more of a holistic approach, perhaps. So I think it's so interesting that so many people have had such a similar experience. And what do you think are some of the things that you did that were damaging to you at the time, but you didn't really realize it?
I think like, well, social media was a big thing, kind of like comparison and all that
Mm,
sort of thing. And at the time as well, I decided to like do calorie counting because like calorie, I feel like it was like a fairly new thing when I got into it because this was
mhm,
back in 2015, 2016. It's kind of like when I started counting calories, I think. And at the time, I thought that was beneficial because that's going to get me to my goals. And I think a
mm,
lot of people can get into calorie counting for those reasons. But just doing it without any guidance and just kind of following, generic advice and like under eating, like I think a lot of people, like, the 1200 calorie diet at the time, I really thought that was beneficial for me. I thought that's what I needed to do. I thought that's what I needed to be healthy, which is something that I'm so big on now. Like, low calories is not like it's not synonymous with healthy, but it's sort of what I thought at the time. And then that's when I developed that super disordered relationship with food that it's like if I'm 10 grams over my carbs, then like the whole day is over. And that developed into that massive all or nothing mentality, which then led into like a binge eating disorder that went on for quite some time. And I actually didn't even realize that it was a problem until I actually went to see a dietitian because I had gained a lot of weight afterwards. So I went to see a dietitian and then she like talked to me in a way that I was like, oh, like this is actually a behavioral thing that I probably need to start
mm.
addressing. Because she was like, oh, like, is there anything that triggers you to like engage in these episodes? And that was kind of like my light bulb moment of like, okay, like there is something that this is something I need to address from like a more, I guess, psychological perspective. But I was a broken student at the time, unfortunately, as an international student. So I couldn't really afford getting help. So it's something that I kind of navigated a little bit on my own. And I was quite thankful for like the resources that I did come across, like, in YouTube and like that kind of thing. Just finding people that I could relate to a little bit. But it was an interesting journey to navigate on my own for sure. And yeah, like if there's anyone that struggles with any sort of like troubled relationship with food, I would definitely recommend them speaking to someone because yeah, it wasn't ideal doing it on my own for sure.
And how did you manage to do that? Because it wasn't an option for you. You mentioned YouTube, you mentioned different resources that you use. How did you find those things and what did you even know what to look for? Because on YouTube, there's like, so many thousands, millions of videos. So, yeah, how did you kind of go about that when you didn't have the option to get that help at first?
Yeah, like I started like, following the advice from just eating the things and I guess removing rules around food. That was like a huge thing for me.
Mm,
I stopped tracking my calories altogether and stopped eating whatever I felt like. And it did, I think it was a tricky thing because it did lead to other binge episodes. But I think that just me being like, okay, like I'm just gonna do whatever my body wants to do without like counting calories, without adding restriction. And I think that over time, it just became less of a novelty for me. But the biggest thing was just like getting rid of the rules. And actually, the more I learn now, because I hear dietitians as well talk about it on like how it's it's normal to go through episodes where you do still overeat the things even after you remove the rules. So I did definitely go through that. And then yeah, like over time just became less of a thing. And I actually like naturally started eating a little bit less. And then yeah, lost a lot of the weight that I had put on. And then now I'm at a place where like I have a really healthy relationship with food now and like really look at it from the lens of health. But I do think that I kind of had to go through all the different phases before reaching this point.
yeah. And which is great in hindsight to be able to help people that are going through the same thing, even though it's one of those experiences that you wouldn't wish upon anyone.
Mm.
It can often become like I like the idea of the fact that things you've gone through become your strength in that you can then guide others that are going through it themselves and you've gone through that phase so you're able to go back and help the people that might be going through it now which is really powerful. And I was interested when you said, and I know that you're from Bolivia, I did know that. And is there any like kind of differences in terms of what you grew up with the messaging around women's health and kind of those stereotypes around fitness and what we should look like and be eating and that type of thing? Have you noticed any differences or similarities between those two like cultures?
Yeah, that's actually such an interesting question. I never like thought about it. But yeah, like I think well, at least I grew up with this idea of like we just need to be like really skinny essentially. And I
Mhm.
think a really big messaging as well that I feel it was a thing back home is like this idea of being attractive to the opposite sex as well. I feel like here I haven't really noticed that there's such a big emphasis on that, but like at least like I grew up with that sort of like messaging, like my brother used to say things like, oh, if you don't wear makeup, like you're never going to find like a man and like that kind of stuff of this idea of what a woman should do, like what feminine means, whether that be from like your body or like your makeup and like that kind of stuff. But yeah, I would say like just like the being skinny, really, which I guess it's similar here. I don't know, like what do you think? Like what sort of messaging did you grow up with around your body?
Yeah, I think being skinny is probably always kind of, oh, not always, actually. It does go through phases. It feels like it's a theme that has been quite steady through time. Like even when there is trends of like the big glutes that was like a few
Yeah.
years ago, and I'm sure at different times as well, but certainly a few years ago that like when I first kind of got into health and fitness and when I became a personal trainer, what I had been doing at the time was like it was all about building glutes, and like that's also what a lot of the industry was about too, which it ended up not like it ended up leading to a a better kind of messaging in the sense of even though it was still about aesthetics and it's still about looks, it became a little bit more around, well, if you want to build glutes, then you got to see food as fuel and to help you perform, and then that performance equals that growth. So it kind of had some benefits in that sense, but was very much still around the looks and that kind of thing. Yeah, I feel like it's probably quite similar. One thing I did think of though, in terms of like different cultures as well around food, is that for some cultures, it's like such a foundation of relationship building,
Mm.
and where you eat is where when you connect, like those times that you sit down and you eat with your family, that's really the time that you bond. And so it's sad to think that there's times where we've missed out on sharing those meals with people when we've just been like, oh, more worried about what's the calories in this. And it's not to say that you can't have those goals and that you can't track ever in your life, but I think it's learning about food and like in a more holistic way, and what things make you feel better, and what's more the optimal amount of protein for you, and what does it look like for you to eat more whole foods, and how often do you need more convenience foods because your lifestyle, like learning that stuff, I think is where the real value comes in, rather than just learning how to jigsaw a certain amount of foods into your calories for the day. Like the dietitian that I spoke to a couple months ago, Val, she was saying how, yeah, you get to the end of the day and be like, okay, what can I like? I can have 10 grams of this thing and like 20 grams of this. And it's just like,
Yeah, then you
it
end up
gets a bit,
eating, yeah.
sorry.
Then you end up eating like the most random stuff because that's what
Yep.
I used to do. I was like, that can't be healthy.
No, and I think that's what girl dinner is. Like, did you see that trend of girl dinner kind
No.
of recently? So to explain what it was, basically it was this trend on social media where girls would post their dinner and it would be like a plate of all this random mismatched food, like maybe few slices of ham and some random cheese and some grapes and some crackers, or like maybe a tiny bit of pumpkin, or like just the most random kind of combination of little bits and pieces. And it was kind of meant to be around like I think some of it was rooted in like mums being so busy and they cook a whole meal for their family and then like they're just like picking up random things. And then I also think some of it comes from like it all ties back to yeah, like the kind of end of the day, oh okay, what can I sort of throw on a plate to kind of work for me? It wasn't all about that, but after I saw the trend, I was like, ooh, this could be a little bit more kind of unhealthy behaviors than what I first thought. So, yeah, that's girl dinner for
Oh,
you.
there you
Which, and
go.
it happens from time to time. Like, as in, you get to the end of the day and you're just like, I don't even have a meal to make, so I'm going to add random stuff on a plate. But
Mhm.
it's when you get to that point of like, it's often happening that you have to try and create some random plate of food to exactly match your calories. And yeah, I feel like that's where it starts to become, it's not even fun. It's not enjoyable at that
Yeah.
point. And yeah, it's kind of starting to take away from, I think, your lifestyle as well.
100%. And it just becomes one thing that you have to do. That's
Mm,
something that I'm huge with my clients. It's like a lot of people have this perception that healthy eating is only if you want to lose weight or like if you have any goals. So like I feel like a lot of eating behaviors can kind of be about that, about the things that you have to do to get to a certain place, rather than thinking about how do I make this more enjoyable? Like how does this fit into my lifestyle? What are the benefits of actually eating like this? Because yeah, like healthy eating, it doesn't have to be tied to your body composition. And I think that's huge. And that's where a lot of people miss the point. So something that I actually do with majority of my clients when we start nutrition is I never really start on a dieting phase. Like even if the goal is weight loss, we will start you at maintenance. We won't even care about tracking at the start. We'll just look at your habits. What do you actually eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Like, do we need to address anything like that and start creating a positive relationship with food and be like, okay, I actually want to eat because this makes me feel good. It means that I'm like more satiated at the end of the day and I don't feel like eating the entire universe at dinner because I skip breakfast and lunch. Like yeah, I think that's a really big point. Like eating because you get to eat, not because you have to get to a
mm,
certain point.
yeah, yeah. It takes completely like I mean, it's a privilege, really. Like, it's a privilege for many of us to actually have access to a full stocked grocery store with like endless amounts of food that we could
Mm.
ever imagine. And to get to the point of like, oh, I have to eat these things, it's definitely, it's preventable and we can create different habits and routines in our life to be able to make that sustainable. And sometimes that might mean that your goal doesn't happen in 6 weeks, it happens in 6 months. And that's
Mm.
okay because then you're going to maintain it. Whereas when it's a 6 week stint of behaviors that are so hard for you to do, but you're like, oh, it's 6 weeks. So you just put
Yeah.
everything in that 6 weeks. And then you get to the end and you're just like, thank God that's over, back to all your old
Yeah.
habits. And then as quickly as it happened, it's undone. And no wonder that you end up going through that cycle over and over again.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing with like I feel fitness challenges and just short-term fixes like that. They don't actually address behavior change. They just rely on like a burst of motivation that you have at the time and not really analyze like why you are like where you are. Like for example, something that comes up with like a lot of my clients, it's like, oh, like I just crave a lot of dessert. I like feel it like overeating episodes and that kind of stuff. And that can come from a place of you actually skipping meals and a fitness challenge that just gives you calories, like that's not addressing the behavior or the motivation behind the behavior. So yeah, like I think that's huge. That's also like an expectation that I also set with clients. It's like it's going to take a little bit longer if we're actually interested in changing your behavior rather than like just being surface level and me giving you calories, which really like you can ask ChatGPT for that.
I
So yeah.
haven't tried that yet.
Yeah, you can. Like you can actually do so much to
Do you
it.
use that a bit like with your business?
I don't really use it too much for like I feel like I should probably learn how to use it a little bit more, but I have gone on it just to kind of see what it can do. Because yeah, like you can ask it to do workouts for you and like I've used it sometimes for recipes actually. Like input it like the things that I want to cook with. And then yeah, like it gives you recipes sometimes. So yeah, I
Did you
definitely need to
try it, the recipe?
no, not yet.
Try it and then let me know because
No.
I've seen that you can do that, but then I've kind of been like, is the recipe good though? That's
Yeah.
my question.
Yeah, because I was using it just to show a client like a template for a meal. And I was like, yeah, like this is like an example of how you could create this sauce. I think we were talking about a sauce, but yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And what about in terms of programming? Because there is so many, like you mentioned, you could get a workout from ChatGPT. You could also buy a workout plan. You could follow someone on social media who, posts workouts every day. And I definitely used to do that as well, and kind of get workouts from people. In terms of making sustainable progress towards your goals and actually towards your goals, what are your thoughts around like the importance of programming and whether it needs to be personalized to people and that type of thing?
Mm. Yeah, I think like personalization in terms of programming, like, you can like frequency is obviously a huge one. But yeah, also like understanding what your body needs is a huge one because everyone's got like, you can have different limitations in like things like mobility, range of motion, certain things. You might need certain exercises to help you out with a particular thing. So like there's just so many reasons why you would want a personalized program, like, injuries and all that sort of thing. But I also think education is a really big component, and that's why I'm so like huge on coaching and why I think it's so important because understanding why you do what you do just sort of sets you up for success and helps you as well, like, you know, differentiate between what's bullshit and what's not on the internet. So I think that's a huge component and why I think coaching is super valuable as well. And also like having a coach to like hold you accountable and like help you out with form and like that kind of thing. But yeah, like any program, like I'm not against generic programs by any means. I think that people can make like amazing progress by doing that. But just having a coach and having someone in your corner can just make you feel like less alone and actually work with you in like the way that you progress as well, understanding when to increase your weights and that kind of stuff. So education, I would say, is the main reason why I think coaching would be beneficial for most people.
What about some of the things that you used to do that you stopped doing? What are some of the things that, say, you went back to 5 years ago that you would have been like, okay, let me put you on something else because this is not it. What are some of those things?
Oh my God, doing too much
Mm.
and thinking that more is better. I said education, this is why you want education. I used to train like 6 times a week. And like I actually found my one of my workout journals the other day and I was like, what the hell was I thinking? It would be like, a full weight session, like with like 8, 10 exercises in there, and then like a finisher of like a HIIT workout, like jumping like the jump boxes and just like burpees and just so much in the one session. And like if you can get through all of that in the one session, it probably means that you're not working nearly as hard as you could. So that's just that mentality of that the more I do, the better results I'm going to get. And a lot of the people that I work with come into coaching with that mindset, like, oh, I want to train 6 times a week, when like it can actually be quite unrealistic for some people. So yeah, that would be the main thing I would say, that mentality of like more is better, but better is better. And, better is like better quality work, like being more intentional with your sessions, whether that be more intensity related exercise selection, that kind of stuff. And yeah, something that actually suits your lifestyle. Like sometimes, like you get people that are clearly quite busy with work and they expect themselves to train 6 times a week when actually adding like a huge stressor to their lifestyle. So yeah, that's a big one. Just thinking that you have to do more and more and more and
Mm.
combining like 10 million things into one session.
Hmm. I used to do the same thing as well. Probably not to that extent. I didn't add a hit workout at the end, but yeah, I used to just do so many exercises. And the thing was that I actually started to really like resent training. Like I didn't enjoy it anymore. Getting me to do it was a real challenge. And there was about a 12-week period where I think I did this program and it was like 5 training sessions a week, which is it's just too much for me. Like for some people, that's a great amount. And I think the thing was that a lot of the fitness people I'd been following at the time, and this is around like 2019, 20, yeah, 2020, 2019. At that time, a lot of those people that I was following, they were doing like 5 days, maybe even 6 days training, and they'd do like three lower body sessions because it was all about the glutes at the time. So I just was like, right, that's what I've got to do. Like, this is the way to, the aesthetics that I want. And yeah, I made like probably the most progress that I had up until that point, but also very quickly after that period of time, then became less consistent with my training because I was just like, I can't keep this up. Like, it's not something that I can maintain long term. And it was interesting because that's when I actually ended up going into powerlifting. And when you said that you really liked going into the gym and learning about your body being more than just the way that it looks and what else you can do with your body, I really felt that when I tried powerlifting because I was just like, yeah, I'm so strong. Like, I can squat 90 kilos. And like, yeah, it was really cool to experience that kind of shift into more performance. And there's so many different ways, that you can move your body as well, which is really nice. What kind of training do you do now, like in terms of your own frequency of training and the different types?
Yeah, so at the moment, I've actually just come down. I'm training 3 times a week at the moment. I'm doing a strength phase at the moment. So at the end of last year, I was doing like a bit of a conditioning training phase because I went to New Zealand in January. So I was prepping for like a lot of hiking. But strength is hands down my favorite style of training, just because what you said, like it's just so empowering to like lift heavy weights. So yeah, doing that, but I'm also bouldering, climbing like twice a week. And then I've just picked up dancing as well. So it's like I'm trying to find this sweet spot. See, I'm trying out 3 times a week, see if that works. If it's like, if it still feels like too much, I might actually have to decrease to 2. But yeah, I'm at a place now where I'm so comfortable like decreasing my training frequency. Because yeah, like we were speaking about back in the day when we used to train like 6 times a week, you could have not paid me to like decrease my training frequency because I was like, I'm just not going to get results. And the thing is, what I find interesting is at the time, like I was just obsessed with changing my appearance, right? Like I actually like when you said like the 3 lower body days a week, I think I was huge in 2019, 2020. Everyone was doing that. Yeah. So yeah, I was like obsessed with like that same idea, like I need to like grow my legs and just like I was going to the gym to change my body and like that just put so much pressure on me. Whereas now where it's more a matter of like I just want to see what I'm capable of, like I have a completely different relationship with it and like I actually feel like trying different hobbies as well because like you said there's so many ways to move your body. I feel like the gym is such a great place to like work on your strengths so you can actually try and do all the things. Like if it
Mm,
wasn't for the gym, I would not feel confident in like, going climbing because I would have probably not felt like I was strong enough. So it
mm,
was really good at creating that base for me and being like, you can actually do hard things and like, yeah, help with my self-belief.
mm. Yeah, that's really nice that it's like empowered you in terms of what you go and do outside of the gym because I think I saw this video on Instagram. I actually wanted to share it to my story. Random fact, but I have a folder on my Instagram that says share to story. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to share this to my story right now. It can't be bothered, but like save it to that folder for later. Everyone's gonna know about this. And anyway, there was one, and it was this girl, and she took videos of her grandmother doing things like lifting groceries, standing up from the couch, like I don't know, climbing upstairs and like going upstairs and different things like that. And after I think it was after her grandmother would do it, she would do it, and the whole purpose was kind of showing that the things the younger girl was doing was so that she could be like her grandmother one day and still get up from the chair and
Oh,
still walk up the stairs and still carry the groceries and things like that. And when I watched it, I was like, wow, there's so much freedom that you get from being able to do those things in your life. Like, imagine, and I always think about this when I use public toilets.
oh.
Because I don't want to sit on a public toilet, right? Like, depends on the public toilet. Most of them, I'm like, nah, can't sit on this. So I have to like squat over it. But
Oh
if
my
I
God.
didn't train my legs, then one day, and sooner than I want it to be, I wouldn't be able to squat over a public toilet, in which
Yeah.
case I've got two options. I either got to go home every time I need to pee, or I have to sit on the public
Oh,
toilet.
greatest
So
motivation in life.
literally, like, I honestly think about that quite often when I use a public bathroom. I'm like, yeah, make sure I go and do some squats later on today or later on this week. So it's really nice when you can see the impact that it has beyond like the way that you look, because we also know that we're all going to age, and like how we look now
Mhm.
is different to how we're going to look eventually. But the things you do now in terms of building that strength, and my dad told me something, I don't remember the exact like statistics, but it was something to do with, he listened to a podcast episode and they were talking about how having weak legs, like not having leg strength, is like a huge issue for when you're older, like when you're sort of an elderly person. And it leads to like so many
Mm,
incidents and like so many kind of worse health outcomes. And it must just be because of the fact that like you're not able to move around. Like if you fall, you can't get up and you're stuck there. Like you might not have a phone on you. You're stuck. Like you've got to wait hours until someone can get you. And when you're also older and you're just like not able to control your body's actually so heavy. Like when you fall over and you're just kind of like dead weight on the floor, like trying to move or even someone else trying to help you is really hard. So I love to try and remember those things from time to time. And what you said about hobbies too, like when I was training 5 days a week, and even when I was powerlifting, I would often say no to
mm,
other styles of hobbies and exercise because I was like, no, that's going to compromise on my gym
mm,
sessions. That is so kind of sad to me because now I do running and Pilates and walks and the gym just twice a week. I do full body twice a week now. And I can go to salsa and I can go on hikes and I can do so many different activities outdoors and indoors and everywhere because I am not trying to, train in the gym 5 times a week. Because in reality, like when you train that often, it's going to add a lot of stimulus if you then are doing more outside of that, which
mm.
trying to recover from is just going to
Yeah.
be hard. I'm not saying it's not doable, but you're probably going to be pretty tired and exhausted, like physically.
100%. Like, I think fitness can really be freedom if you let it, but then it's so easy to also become a prisoner of the gym because I can relate to that so much because I did the same. Like, I would say no to things that I actually really valued in my life. Like, like the outdoors has always been a huge thing for me. And when I got into the gym, I was like, oh no, I can't go camping. I've got training on Saturday. Like, just stuff like that. And yeah, like it really like affected me negatively because it felt like I thought I was living like in a line with my values, but I didn't feel fulfilled. And that was why, because I actually wasn't. Whereas now I feel like it's at such peace because I am living according to my values. Like I do the things that are important in my life, and the gym is no longer like my entire life. And yeah, like when it's all about, I do feel like there was a correlation there that I thought that if I looked better, I would be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think that was the thing that was driving my behavior towards the gym. Whereas now it's more like I train to be strong and so I can do all the things. So there's just, like I said before, like less pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And look, I'll be honest for myself, there's still an aesthetic component to it. Absolutely.
Mm.
Like I want to just share that because there might be some people that are
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, now shaming themselves because they are like, oh, well, I'm going to the gym to grow glutes. Like, that's also okay.
Mm.
I think it's just when that's your sole
Yeah,
focus and the
exactly.
only reason you go and the only driver, then it's going to be that thing where it's probably not actually fulfilling you because it's that external motivator rather than what are some of those intrinsic motivators, like feeling strong and
Mm.
like being strong for other areas of your life as well.
Yeah, 100%. And you can always like also link that external extrinsic motivation to something that's a bit more intrinsic. Like, I love like putting on muscle. That's like a bit of an aesthetic goal, but that is linked to me like being strong as well. So it's about, I think, finding the nice balance in between the two and making sure that that like more extrinsic aesthetic, more like driver is also linked to something that you value internally. Something that I like to ask to a lot of my clients, like when they come on board and they share their goals, is like, what is it for you on the other side after you accomplish that goal? What is it for you after you've achieved that toned body? How does life look like after you do that? And that's when often we can start to find what those intrinsic motivators actually are. And that's what we want to make sure that we keep in mind when we're working towards your goals, rather than just being toned. It's like that is usually tied to something else. And I find
Mm.
that actually feeling like capable is something that comes up a lot. A lot of people just want to trust their bodies a little bit more.
Actually, when you said that question, what it does it look like on the other side, I was like, huh, like, yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And I thought about it in my head too. I was like, what would that look like? Like, say whatever my idea of, a very aesthetic body type is, what would it feel like? What would that mean to my life if I looked that way? And honestly, like the only thing that I can really come up with is that, oh, well, like when I walk around, people would like think I'm really fit. And like, and that I would look great in photos. Like, but I don't actually really care about that. Like, that's coming from, yeah, those external drivers. And kind of, if you think about, well, what are you actually looking for there? Well, you want to be validated and accepted and
Mm.
loved by others because that's the core need that we have as human beings. And then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, do you actually need to look a certain way in order for that to occur in your life? And the answer is no, because you can find people that love you and accept you no matter what you look like. And it might take a bit of time for that, but certainly, like, look at the people that you're around, and if you feel you're only getting kind of feedback on the way that you look rather than who you are, that could be an indication that there's a conversation to have there, or that they're not your people. But yeah, I think that's something that I used to think about, that maybe even unknowingly, and just go, okay, what do I want? I want a six pack abs. Okay, what does that mean for me? Oh, I get to have six pack abs on the beach. Oh, wait.
Mm.
But if I actually think about, literally visualize laying on the beach with six pack abs, does my life really feel any better? Not really. And do I actually want to put in the work to get there? Not really. And that's the
Yeah.
important question too, is like, do you actually want to do what is required of you to achieve that goal? And if you don't, that's okay. There might be some things, some things you can put in place, but it could also mean that it's just not something that you have any kind of intrinsic motivation towards as well.
Yeah, and some people might be like, I just really love the challenge of getting myself
Mm.
there. And like some people find joy in that sort of thing. Because, things like, for example, bodybuilding are not my thing in the slightest. I could not think of anything worse to do. But you see people that are actually intrinsically motivated to do that. Like they just really enjoy challenging themselves in that way and like seeing what they're capable of. And that's where the joy in the process is for those people. So everyone is different in that sense
Mm.
as well. And I do think that sometimes you have to go through like what you said about, having abs. Like I remember, going through dieting periods and like sometimes you go through that and you're like, why am I even doing this? But going through that process is helpful because now I know like, having the six pack is like not in my interest because the process to get there sucks. I find absolutely no joy in something like that. But it
Mm.
was good to like attempt to go through that process because I guess it taught me a little bit about what I value in my life too. And that's like more balance. I love eating out with friends. Like I love engaging in other things. I like feeling good too. Because personally, like if I get like too lean, like my energy levels start to suffer. And I'm not about that. I don't like that. Because
Mhm.
that means that I get to do less of the things that I actually really value.
Yeah. I really thank you for that comment, for expanding on the fact that some people enjoy the challenge, because that's a really great perspective to look at it from. That for some people maybe it's actually not about what the exact outcome is. Maybe it's like the challenge for them and how they need to commit to something. And it can be fun. Like, it's very fun when you set goals because I guess, when you get the motivation and that dopamine release, like it's when the thing's coming, it's when you're working towards something, it's when you're about to get there. It's not actually when you get there. It's like the lead up to it. Like, there's studies that have been done on people that go on holidays, and the time that they're actually like the happiest is before they go on the holiday, and then like maybe the first day or first couple days when you still are on the holiday and there's still more days to come. But yeah, it's like that lead up, I guess, and the working towards something. Sometimes that could just look in different forms for people, and like you said, they might try it and then realize, oh, I'm going to take this challenge and do it elsewhere. Maybe now it's powerlifting, maybe now it's rock climbing, who knows.
Yeah, exactly. Just apply it in different areas of your life. But yeah, I think it's good to have that perspective of knowing and like that you might be different to other people. Because like you said, like it's if someone listens to this and they're like, oh my God, like this goal sucks because I want to have a six pack. But I think it's just important to get curious and like the why behind it.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's still a very valid goal to have too. Like, there's so many reasons why you might have it. I mean, at the moment I've had a goal of like kind of recomposition, I suppose. Like, I felt that my and also had seen in scans, like body scans, not that they're the most accurate by the way, but they're data, and you just, kind of look at them over time, you can see changes. And yeah, noticed that my muscle mass had gone down to what it was previously, and that my fat mass had gone up, and also visceral fat. So, like, yeah, fat around the belly that is more the, I don't know, I don't want to say dangerous because that'll be fear mongering, but just like the thing that you want to be, I guess, aware of.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I set a goal for myself to be building muscle, and also to be tracking with slightly less than maintenance, also getting in protein, because that's one thing that I notice when I don't track. I really am like, I'm sure I've had enough protein today. And so for me, well, the challenge there would be to go, okay, how can I get enough protein into my diet without needing to track? Because I don't want to track like forever. That's never something for me that is a goal, because there's days in your life, many, many days, where tracking is just not like doable, like, Christmas Day, or just going out for dinner on a Friday night. Like, sometimes it's just like not doable. But yeah, so in all of what we've been talking about, like, I do have those kind of, it is aesthetic, like doing recomposition is aesthetic, but I guess for me, like, it's the process that I really enjoy, and like I feel good looking at like, okay, I'm gonna have these whole foods this week, and this is my protein, and then like these are my veggies, and that's more like my focus. And then yeah, I'm gonna run. I love running, and I'm gonna train twice a week for more that muscle. And yeah, so it's, I guess there's such a balance to find with it as well.
Yeah, and it's like falling in love with the process because I feel like when you're also working towards a goal, like you're doing something for you and that feels good. Like putting yourself first and
Mm.
putting like your own priorities, I guess, like first. So no, I love that. Yeah, how have you been going with like your gym and stuff then?
I love training twice a week. It is probably the, oh, I won't say the best, but it's very up there. It's one of the best changes that I've made in terms of my health and fitness, is changing to 2 times a week for going to the gym, because I love strength training. I love lifting weights, but I don't love it so much that I want to do it for an hour every single day. I love being outside. Like, it just didn't really fit in with my lifestyle, especially once I moved up to the Gold Coast. There's just so many ways to move your body, and I love going to the beach. So I'd rather go for a walk at the beach, or like a run along the beach, than, I'd rather do that 5 times a week than go to the gym 5 times a week. So I think that's been really like talking about freedom in terms of your movement. Like, it's given me a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom. And also, just when I started full time work 2 years ago, almost for the first time, I was like, man, how do these people do it? Because I was a coach, right? And I was
Yeah.
a PT, that was my job, and I had a gym in my house. So it was very accessible for me. Not to say that it was that much easier because it's still very much a mental thing, but the accessibility does make a huge difference. And yeah, when I started full time work too, I was like, it's just not realistic for me to
Mm.
go like to the gym 5 times a week. Like, I don't want to go after work when everyone else is there and it's busy. Like, most of the time, I'm fortunate to have quite flexible work. So I might go at like 3 p.m. and come back and do a bit more work afterwards. But when I first went full time, I was pretty inconsistent with the gym because trying to fit in those gym sessions and also not liking busy gyms is like virtually impossible. Like it's not easy. It's possible, but it's not easy. So yeah, going just twice a week, like I get the feeling of the strength. I actually am building muscle, like the stats show me that over time, over the last 6 months or so, that I have built more muscle back, which is great because I feel that, like I feel stronger. And yeah, I'm just going twice and I really love it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I think what you said before as well is such a good point, like for people that work full time, because I do feel like a lot of the content that we see in social media from fitness comes from coaches. And a
Exactly.
lot of people can compare, and it's like you cannot compare. Like as coaches, we have so much privilege in the sense of like we get to choose when we train, and or like, well, not necessarily like, I train after my clients, but usually it's like a mid-morning, like nice and quiet gym. Like you can't compare that when for you it means that you have to go to the gym at 5 p.m. because of your work. And honestly, if I had to go to the gym at 5, I probably wouldn't want to go in more than like once or twice because
Yeah.
it's so busy in there. So I definitely wouldn't do it. And I think that's so important for people to remember, like the content that you see from people that have the privilege to either choose where they train, or like that's their job. Like if you're at the gym the whole day, it's so easy to show up because there's just no friction between you and the actual behavior of getting to the gym. Like sometimes I don't really feel like training, but like I'm there already. So it's like, it's just so much easier to push through that discomfort and actually get it done.
Yeah. And you're in activewear too. So it's like,
Yeah,
oh, okay,
exactly.
I'll just start doing some rows and see how I feel. Oh, yeah, this is great. And then
Yeah.
you're an hour in and it's done.
And
I'll
there's
tell you
zero
one
friction.
thing that has been helping me a lot lately and like helped me when I was getting back to consistently going to the gym was timing my workouts. Like, I think it's maybe the one thing that actually like gets me there is I go, right, I'm going to the gym. I'm going to set my timer for an hour, counting back from an hour. And I just know that, like, that's as long as I have to be there. Like, when I used to go to the gym and do a 90-minute session, an hour and a half session, oh, I would get to kind of
Oh,
50 minutes in and be like, no, I want to go soon. Like, I don't know, that's my sweet spot. I find that like an hour is a really good amount of time where I can still focus. Like, I don't get like agitated. Whereas, like, past that, I'm like, nah, get me out
oh
of here.
man.
I've been here too long. And that's been like a big game changer for me, too. It's such a simple thing, but like, just not needing to be in there for so long and like, exercise after exercise, yeah, has been a real nice change for me too.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I will never do more than four exercises in a session because I'm the same. Like, an hour, 45 minutes. For legs, it's like 3 or 4 exercises max. Because you also get so taxed because leg exercises are so exhausting. So, yeah, because at the moment I'm doing like 2 lower body days and then 1 upper body day. But yeah, legs, like, I've got one session is 3 exercises, the other one is 4. Yeah, I feel like that gets me on the sweet spot of like an hour. And now
Mm,
in max anything more, it's a bit too much for me as well.
yeah. And we have so many, other responsibilities in our
Yeah.
lives. And I love the quote that everyone has the same 24 hours, but not everyone has the same things to
Yes.
fit into those 24 hours. And so I think it's important to consider what that means for you. And yeah, like you said, that a lot of the, like, if I think about my feed, I'm like, oh yeah, most of the people that I view on social media posting their workouts are fitness people, in which case,
Mm.
yeah, they're there all the time. And like for them, posting content's actually like part of their job as well.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's, yeah, it's not really like it doesn't help you to compare what you do as what we call like the general population person to
Yeah.
someone who is a trainer or an athlete or something like that and creates that content as part of their work too.
Yeah, and it gives me the ick when I hear people say like, "Oh, everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. Like, stop your excuses." And they're like 20 years old, and it's like, just don't. It's not the same. Yeah, like it's so different from like a full-time work. So that's why I'm huge with like time management with my clients too, because I feel like that helps you set realistic expectations, like
Mm.
actually mapping out your week and being like, okay, how much realistically can I fit in whilst enjoying all the areas of my life too? Because I think that that's sometimes like what I've found some people get, like they might put a lot of like the gym sessions, but then they don't end up feeling fulfilled because they're missing all the aspects of their life that they may actually really enjoy as well. Like, going for walks and like kind of swapping the walk for a gym, and that doesn't really feel good for them because they're missing that outdoor component, which might actually be a really relevant thing for stress management. So it's just so
Mm.
important to like map out your week and like see what is realistic for you and how your 24 hours look like.
Mm. Yeah, and mapping out like that reminded me the other thing that helps me quite a bit is to actually look ahead at my week and go,
Mm.
okay, when can I fit in those sessions? Because when you just kind of think, yeah, it'll happen, and I know this is very simple and everyone talks about this, but it's always a welcome reminder to me because sometimes I do forget, and so I actually have my workouts, my two that I do on repeat, so they're already in my calendar, and then it's just a matter of me moving them if I need to, which I do because
Mm.
like my days can look quite different. But yeah, just like having that time blocked out beforehand so that it's not left up to chance, because then sometimes when I get through the day or I start the day, it's like, oh, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. And oh no, I was going to train now, but I'll just move that a bit till later. But when it's there, you kind of come to it and you go, okay, like, yep, I've set this side of time aside and I can make it work. So I think that's another thing that is definitely helpful to just kind of map out your week a bit and think about what's actually achievable for you too.
Yeah, definitely Google Calendar like saves my life. And it's also like a good way to build your self trust. Like, if you've got it there and you actually show up, you just continuously showing yourself that you do the things that you promise yourself that you would. And that is just such a huge component. Like another reason why I love fitness so much is because it can really translate into other areas of your life. Like you consistently showing up, doing the thing that you said that you were going to do, like that just gives you evidence that you are capable. That was a huge thing for me because my self-esteem was non-existent, and the gym really helped me in that sense. It's like you actually can do like, hard things. You can show up for yourself. You can go to places alone, because a huge thing for me was like I wouldn't want to go anywhere by myself. But yeah, like the gym really helped me with that, just like showing yourself that you're capable, and like, yeah, like a little evidence bucket that you
Mm.
like putting stuff in that bucket every single time that you do the thing. And yeah, like having it in your calendar and like treating that like a commitment, it's a big component of that, I think.
There was a Mel Robbins video, like audio from her that was going around. Do you know Mel Robbins? She's a
Yeah, I love her.
yeah, I figured you would. She's
Yeah.
your type of lady. She's awesome. And she had a clip from somewhere she'd said this, I don't know, maybe her podcast. And she was saying pretty much something around the lines of don't trust your mood in the moment when it comes to about whether you feel like doing movement, do
Mm.
the movement and then see how your mood is. And I was like, oh, okay, like what does that mean? And then kind of just thought about it over a few weeks. And yeah, it was like sometimes before I'm going to go and do a gym session, I'm like, no, I feel tired. Work was long. I don't want to do it. I just want to go home. And what kind of gets me there is I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I want to show up for myself just an hour and then you can go, or like sometimes I'll just say just do the first exercise, but every single time as soon as I start I'm like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. Like maybe not amazing, that they don't always have to be amazing, but most of the time like my mood very much changes as a result of the movement. So I kind of trust in the movement first and then see what my mood is. And maybe if I start doing some exercise and I do really feel still exhausted, that would be a sign for me that, okay, maybe we're going to take it easy today, or maybe we're just gonna do half a session. But
Mm.
I would say like 95% of the time after I start movement, my mood is like, woo, like I
Yeah.
just, get that blood flow, those endorphins and feel like 10 times better than the mood I had beforehand.
Yeah, no, that's a tactic that I also use quite a lot. It's actually such a good tactic to build new habits as well. Like, if you're starting to go to the gym, just creating like a less of a barrier and make it more accessible. Like, rather than being like, I'm going to do like 3 gym sessions, 1 hour a week, maybe you just aim for 15 minutes, like 10 minutes. And like more often than not, you'll stay there for longer. It's about like making it more accessible. I'm pretty sure like James Clear talks about it in Atomic Habits, like his I think it's a 2 minute rule, like a new habit should only
Mm,
take you 2 minutes. Yeah, I really like that idea as well. Such a good way to, yeah, like go through like those slow motivation phases, but also implement new things as well.
hmm Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
Oh gosh, we've covered off on some
Yeah.
great things regarding training. I'm feeling very motivated right now. Already went for a run this morning, but on Sunday I'll be thinking back to this conversation. Laura, one of the things that I love to kind of wrap up a podcast with is asking you about what you're excited for in the future. I know we can spend a lot of time in the future and also a lot of time in the past. So we've been very present, which is great. And we have talked a bit about the past. So going forward, what are you looking forward to in your life, whether it relates to your training or your business or even other areas?
Oh, I am super excited because within like my coaching business, we bring in up like a functional health component to it, which I'm super excited about. So that is more like from the lens of like blood work and that kind of thing to help out people from like even a more holistic perspective. So that's probably one of the things that I'm looking forward to the most. And that's just me collaborating with other health professionals, which I'm very excited about. So that's going to be coming soon. So I would say that's like the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to the most.
Watch this space then. That's really
Yeah,
interesting. I can't wait to
yeah.
hear more about that. I've actually always wanted to do something a bit more like that. The real, like the blood work and the nutrition and the training and the lifestyle. Like when it's all together, I feel like you are able to squeeze so much out of it because you really see the whole picture of like what's going on. So that's
Mm,
great.
yeah, I've dived into that with my own journey. So now I cannot wait to share it with, yeah, other
Oh,
people.
awesome. Really good to
Yeah.
know. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for coming and chatting with me on the podcast. I've really enjoyed our conversation and just, yeah, getting to know a bit more about you as well. And where can listeners find you if they are interested in connecting with you?
Instagram would be the biggest place, I guess. So yeah, that's at Coach Laura Chavez. That's Chavez. I know it's a bit of a weird surname, but yeah, that's the one. But yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was super enjoyable.
Awesome.
Yeah, I
Thank
love
you,
your
Laura.
podcast, so it's awesome to be here.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, well, I was saying to you earlier how like we basically we're strangers on the internet, like to put it really how it is, like we don't know each other that well. But if I didn't do a podcast, I would probably never get to have this conversation with you because what are the odds that I actually message you, Laura, and say, hey, do you want to jump on a phone call
Yeah.
for an hour together? Like you just don't do that with like
Yeah.
people that aren't in your kind of, I guess, social circle or like friends and family. So it's really nice to be able to have like long conversations and like nuanced conversations with people and learn more about them. So yeah, I really appreciate that you came on today.
Yeah, no, I love that perspective. But yeah, thank you again.
Thank you.